Hey everybody, and welcome back to Coffin Talk Interviews with the Living, a weekly podcast that explores how our views on death affect the way we live our life. And this week I am coming to you solo at first, and then I will introduce the interview and we'll move on to that. And as I stare at myself on the screen and I notice this blemish over here, that's from shaving this morning. So the entire interview, if you're distracted by my shaving cut, I was having to stare at myself yet again on a Zoom call. I just want to hide myself from all of this. I don't want to look at myself while I talk. It's very unnatural. I don't think most orators stare at a mirror while they talk. Maybe you practice in front of one, but that's never been my style. I don't mind my eyes though. I think my eyes look kind, so I'll give myself a compliment as I berate the rest of existence. But anyway, my interview today is with Ted Whetstone. He's an incredible guy. We met through a mutual friend. His name is Jesse Hirsch. He's been on 2 of our podcasts. He was on a regular episode of Coffin Talk, and he also was on one of the bonus premium episodes because he's so interesting and fascinating. He writes a wonderful Substack called Meta Views. You can find the link to it through my Substack, but I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Jesse because not only is he a great person, and not only did he encourage me to start ancillary projects in my life that are paying dividends beyond anything I expected, but he's a great guy, and I really like how he connects people. And so he does these monthly salons, and on one of them was this guy, Ted Whetstone, and I liked his face, I liked his answers, I liked his attitude. You know, sometimes when you connect with someone, you don't have to explain why. And so afterwards, I followed up and found him on LinkedIn, and then we actually had a online chat just to like get to know each other. And I'll be honest, I didn't say this to him at the time, but I hate doing stuff like that. I have a bad attitude about it, and I'm always worried. And there was something about Ted, and I just trusted him, and it paid off. The conversation went quickly. I didn't want to get off. I could have kept talking to him. And then lo and behold, we did today's interview, and I always have to watch the clock. I got little kids coming home. I have this special time where I can be in a quiet studio, if you will, and record. And so I'm like eyeing the clock as we're running out of time, and I'm like, oh man, I could keep talking to Ted. So here's a warning to you, Ted, if you're watching this. I might actually have you on one of the bonus podcasts to talk more because he is that interesting, you are that interesting, and I loved his approach to philosophy, to answering questions, to analyzing context, content versus context. He talked about emergence with ant colonies, and if you've read one of my earlier short stories, you know that I'm obsessed with ants, and I love the idea of them and bees and how they work as a colony. We talked about caring and uncaring ideas. We talked about thinking beyond what you normally think, reductionism, America, living abroad, so many wonderful topics. So it's a great interview. I'm excited to present it to you. And as far as my personal life goes, a couple fun updates for you. One, did you know that all of us have eyelid mites? So they're these little mites that live on our eyelids, and they like suck up the tear ducts and tears that we have, not the ducts. And so I went to a doctor because I was having blurry vision in my left eye. Sorry, I'm staring at a reverse mirror. And after much panicking and worrying when I was in the office, not ahead of time, because I figured, oh, it's probably glaucoma or some horrible condition. And I have perfect eyesight because I had LASIK surgery a long time ago, and I just have great ocular strength, so I don't have to wear reading glasses yet. And so I was like worried about all of this happening. And she goes, oh, no, you have too many eyelid mites. You need to kill them with tea tree oil. So I'm bathing my eyes in tea tree oil every day. And I thought I was just some sort of freak show, but this is like a heavily marketed industry. So apparently, and I'm warning you if you're young, as you get older, you may start having issues with not having wet enough eyes. So I'm carrying around these little like eye droppers, and I'm treating my eyes, and I'm killing eyelid mites. And yes, I'm killing eyelid mites. You're my nemesis. I'm very predatorial these days. So the part of me that never wants to kill anything, it was talked out of that in 2006 by someone when he said, you drink water and you killed the bacteria, so get over it. So I like to tell vegans and vegetarians and anyone else who likes to brag about their effect on Earth, you're still killing something. Just by breathing, you're probably inhaling mites and killing them. So anyway, I'm killing eyelid mites so that I can see you and see myself and see the world more clearly. And then the other crappy thing that happened to me was I broke my foot slamming on the brakes to avoid hitting a car. I did hit the car. It didn't cause enough damage for us to even exchange insurance. The other driver was not hurt, but I have a broken foot. It's called Newtonian physics. I guess I hit something, mass times acceleration, blah, blah, blah. It went back into my foot. I have flat feet. TMI, I don't care. And so apparently the way I flexed it did something. So I have a broken foot. I got chronic dry eyes. I'm feeling my age these days, but I'm also full of smiles and I'm loving life. So I just wanted to pass that on to you as my Coffin Talk audience. Thank you, as always, for jumping in and joining us in another episode. And I will continue to make these as long as the feedback is good, and the feedback has been great. So thank you to everyone who listens and supports the show. And you can support us in a million different ways, but one of the best ways would just be to drop an episode to a friend. introduce them to it, see if they like it. I think we're doing something different here. I don't think there's any other podcast doing what we're doing. And there's 1,000,001 podcasts, and they're all great. Actually, no, they're not all great. Some of them suck. You know that. I know that. But a lot of them are really good. So I'm not in competition with any of them, and I'm just a free spirit who loves everyone. But if you know someone who you think might be inclined to like the metaphysical discussions we have, maybe let them know. And you also can do nothing, and you can just continue to listen. It really won't affect my life in a good way, because I'm a balanced, healthy individual practicing acceptance of what is, and it's a wonderful way to go through life. So zen zen, hari hari, la la la. I love you all. This is Coffin Talk. Let's go to the interview. Hi everybody, and welcome back to Coffin Talk, interviews with the living, a weekly podcast that explores how our views on death affect the way we live our life. And this week, coming to you live, is Ted Whetstone. He's an executive coach who partners with senior leaders to transform how they think, lead, influence, and impact, blending systems thinking with decades of operational and strategic experience. From small businesses to Fortune 100 companies, he empowers executives to ignite innovation and align stakeholders to drive breakthrough results. Ted holds an engineering degree from Cornell University, which is located in Ithaca, New York, where I once lived for 2 years. And he's a credentialed coach with the International Coaching Federation, otherwise known as ICF. That's a lot of stuff. We'll get into some of it, maybe not all of it. But Ted, it's good to have you on the show. How are you?
Great to be here, Mike. Great. Thank you.
Cool. We will definitely talk about Ithaca in about a minute, because I love to connect with people over that strange, icy hellhole in America. My first question I ask every single guest is, how old are you? Where did you grow up? And what generation, if any, do you consider yourself a member of?
Ooh, interesting. Well, I just turned 60 a week or two ago.
Wow, congrats.
So this idea of mortality is starting to seem more realistic than it was. Grew up in the East Coast, Connecticut,
Cool.
But left when about 13. Dad was international business, have lived around the world, various places.
Wow. Awesome.
And I don't connect with any particular generation, because I think I'm just on the cusp of a few, but boy, aren't we all changing all the time. I hate to put people in boxes. So I'll take that stance.
Yeah, I think I said this on a different podcast, but it's worth repeating because I was so fascinated by it. According to Keith Richards in his autobiography from the Rolling Stones, even the term teenager was invented in his lifetime as a demographic to market to. So apparently all this is just nonsense about marketing, all of it, which does make sense to me now. So yeah, no, you and I, we connect as humans. I don't care about any age difference, younger or older and all that, But with that said, 60 is kind of like a cool age to me, because I don't know, there's like a lot of wisdom meets potential. There's still a lot of youthfulness and life left. So I don't know. I hope it's treating you well. But
yeah, it's funny. But this is back to this conversation for me personally. As you look towards, let's say, death, or look towards 60, very separate conversations. But there was a time when that's the end of the world. And it's literally a day before. It still is just a whatever. And something happened when I aged. It was just not what I made it mean. It's almost like you can't perceive something until you've been there entirely, right? You can try all you want, what Paris is going to be like, but you have to be there, really. So all these are projections as our best guesses. And it's a little transformation that happens once you get there.
Yeah. That's interesting. You're reminding me of a different thought I had recently, which is like when I was in my 20s, like a lot of Americans, I backpacked in Europe and I did the whole circuit. And I haven't gone back. I've traveled to other countries and I love traveling, but it was like a one-off. And so all my memories of like Venice are just this one like 3-day sojourn in Venice, and then like 3 days in Paris, or maybe it was a week. But part of me doesn't want to revisit. Part of me wants to just keep this like cemented happy memory of the places. But this kind of segues into what I wanted to originally ask you about living in different cultures. Have you ever felt like you don't have like just the American perspective because at 13 you were moved and you experienced other cultures?
That's hard to say, because who knows when our formative years really are, and of course our parental influences. So I went to high school in Geneva, and of course I went to school with 80 nationalities. There's an international school, and so. Yeah, hard to say, but I think, yes, very Western, at least, mindset training, and probably still American values even then. However, I lived in Japan for 6 years in the 90s.
Wow.
And that does start to shift, because now you're no longer in a Western context, and you realize that's not the only way to look at the world. The old Confucian type model for compared to what so it has changed with time and experiences. But I have to say, I'm rooted in sort of an American mindset, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's it's weird because I think Americans, in a weird conversation we have among ourselves, are preoccupied with this very false notion that we're the only people who are obsessed with who we are. But it's obnoxious to me at a certain level because you go to any other country and they're also proud to be who they are. I don't think other countries are as boastful as we are. I don't think they like chant like their three acronym name and like say we're number one. So I will give them credit and kind of demote us on that issue, but with that said, like Japan, for example, I went to Japan and I experienced tremendous culture shock when I was there. I was there for 2 weeks, and it was I was actually over one thing. I like to smile. You like to smile. They're not a smiley culture, and it started to really wear me down because I'm used to like, oh, okay, Germans don't smile, but if you smile at them, they kind of fake it back. But the like actual social code of like why you smile when you smile is so different there. So I am curious, since you are like a very gregariously faced person, if that makes sense. Like you have just like an open, yeah, like a good smile, a good sense of humor. That's part of why I wanted to have you on the podcast. Did that come up for you at all? Was that like in any way an issue?
That's so interesting. I'll say no is the short, but there's a little bit of historical. If you ask anyone in the world, they're just amazed how great our dentistry is, right? So we have nice teeth. I don't know though I want to say we are proud, but when you have something that you're not ashamed of or something, right? There's no resistance. Then again, people aren't ashamed of their teeth until they see someone else's teeth that are nice, and maybe they're less inclined to show my crooked teeth.
Wow.
So it's kind of hard to tell which is which. Japanese, that's difficult because I lived there.
Mm-hmm.
I dated there. I speak the language somewhat. And again, they're lovely people.
Yeah, yeah.
But yes, there's a much more public persona that we present there.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's our humble persona back at home, which many people would never show you their home, right? But they'll come out so I think it's out of respect. And I'm sure there is a cultural thing about smiling or showing too much of that is perhaps offensive. So I had no problem with that.
Cool.
And I've had many beers and many hysterical laughs with many Japanese. And behind the curtain, they're just like us. They're people.
Actually, I should have mentioned that every night that I got drunk, literally every night, it was wonderful, and I did experience that. It was actually like the daytime going into the shops, and then also I had like one interaction with the police there, which I didn't speak a lick of Japanese. I mean, literally arigato from a song from the 80s. Like I knew nothing. I went there because I had a friend teaching ESL there, and he was dating someone there who was local, so we were able to like tour around. I didn't have to speak, she would just do all the interactions. But the scene with the police was like memorable because I'm scared of the police everywhere. It doesn't matter. I'm just scared of their authority. I'm not like a criminal, but their police was like extra intimidating to me, like because of the smile thing. So anyway, I just thought that was a fun tag to the experience. Back to you and your wonderful life. So the business world, like you coach in it, you participate in it, you help in it. I've been writing a lot recently about like what my peers call late stage capitalism. I don't care what the terms are. I'm curious, how do you feel about like the trajectory of American business culture since you've been alive? It's certainly changed. Yeah, that's a huge question.
Sure.
Just answer it in whatever level you feel comfortable.
Well, but let's think about it. I mean,
hey everyone, if you're a fan of the show, please head over to mikeyop.com and click the subscribe button. It's the best way to support us, and it's free. That's MIKEYOPP.com. Thanks.
Let's really zoom out to the development of mankind, right? I mean, the economic theory's only been around for a couple hundred years at best since the Industrial Revolution. So from an organism level this is all new. Mm-hmm. So the idea of capitalism, all right, and all of that, I think it's new, and these are really kind of co-evolving the same conversation with the smiling conversation, because it's how we know ourselves and how we know others, how we interact. And so, interesting that we've talked about the whole American rah-rah thing, because capitalism, boy, this is all communication. It is all perception. And I do think I'm one of them. I'm a recovering left-brainer. I studied physics at college. I was a nerd, and I was convinced the world is reductionist, right? That's the Western philosophy, and certainly American. And when you go to these Eastern cultures and all, of course, they see it all as connected and together. So whereas I guess capitalism, if that's what you call it, sounds like a transactional, you know, thing, and it is at the immediate level. But if you look at any product and any exchange, where I came to this conversation with you today is a whole background, and where you came to this is a whole background, and here we are. So what looks like a temporary transaction is actually a whole plethora of events that came to this point. So it's actually really pathetic, minimalist to call capitalism just pure transactionalism when you look at the impact of what so I've evolved. I love the idea that people talk about shareholder value, and how limited that is, because that's the financial mindset. Whereas we talk about stakeholder value, there's a lot more constituents involved. So I have evolved into understanding more that I think people they've gotten this for years, that look, what you're buying and what you're doing has impact. Think beyond the transaction. I hope people were getting better about understanding buying from people who have. Anyway, that's it has evolved from a very simplistic transactional mindset to a little bit more, hopefully, transformational. You do business and support businesses that are aligned with values and beyond just functional needs.
That's great. I was with you. You could have talked for another 5 minutes, and I was locked in. Just in case sometimes people get self-conscious on any show, and I just want to let you know, no, that's you speak succinctly and very well about what you're talking about, and it's your approach is great, because it's truly. I mean, there's bias in anything we say, but it was an unbiased approach to answering my question, and my question was very biased. So,
well, you caught me off guard. I'm glad I spat something out. But to your point, I think it's something important, because we just talked before we get on the sort of philosophical bent, and I happen to as well. Too often we're busy answering the question that's right there versus stopping to get context. What has you asked that, and what is it you're really after? And I didn't do that. But the other is B, before I respond, is give context to where I'm coming from, right? And I just don't think enough of us do this. We're just focused on content in the moment versus context. So that was my attempt to sort of put it in a philosophical context.
That's great.
Not the correct one, but just a one.
Yeah. And backing up just a little bit, I'm curious, was there a turn? Was there like a sea change moment that you went from engineer reductionism to man of the world, or is it a slow evolution?
Wow. How do I do this quickly? So
no, don't go quickly. Take your time.
15 years ago, I've been going to a lot of seminars and growth work, and I had said, I want to be that person on stage, but I don't want to be just delivering someone else's content or the same stuff that people have been peddling. I want to do something transformative. What was that going to be? And I was driving down. There was a section on NPR or something called "These Things I Think." Little 2-minute segment, and I thought to myself as I'm driving to the seminar, I'm like, "What do I think?" Right? And I don't think I'd ever asked myself that question, like truly as a created versus, okay, from all the stuff I've experienced, here's my opinion. No. What is a developed, thoughtful perspective? So as I started to look at that, it blossomed into me thinking for myself, which was a first. And then to our conversation here, once you get outside the bounds of what we're typically just used to transacting, and I think I'm a person with a shirt here, when you start looking at it, and I'm sure we'll get into it, we are far more than that. And so I think that was the nexus. And again, my background is science and all that. And science had been very reductionist, right? Here, and we know this in medicine. Where does it hurt? The knee. Well, then let's fix that. When we find out later that it's a whole mechanism of how we stand and posture and all these things, we're getting more holistic. And I think it's just the beginnings of, and back to our American thinking or even reductionist thinking, there is reductionism does work. It, narrowing things down, but it's limited.
Mm-hmm.
Holism works, but it can be everything's involved, and now that's overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
How do we bring these two almost paradoxical frameworks together? And that's been my journey for the last 15 years, is understanding what's going on. Where are we in all of it? And so it was part science, looking at the world, part just making an inquiry. And that then starts to test, well, I used to think this, where did that come from? And what do I think about that? And boy, the beginnings of truly reflecting what's my truth. That's a big question that takes a couple years to unpack. Still at it.
Yeah. And actually, I think there would be no better time to segue into the only other planned question on the show, which, as you know, is what do you think happens when you die? So I'd love to know, like, at this stage, at this juncture, having just turned 60, having experienced all these things, what do you think is going to happen to you, Ted, when you die?
Well, so back to context, let's zoom out. And often I just listen to the actual words we use, and this is our problem as a species, I think. We developed language in a time when, words were very physical based. So you, me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens to you? Now, I'd like to reinterpret the word you, because habitually that left brain thinking thinks it's this.
Mm-hmm.
That's one part of it. But who I am, and this is not being philosophical, it's the relationships I get to have. It's the ideas I carry. It's my interests, my skill. And if you then take a look at who we are, I think it's 0.001% physical, this stuff. And so much of it is this transaction of ideas, emotions, right? And so I kind of almost, my answer is coming, but the idea.
That's cool. I love this.
I think that just to get to the bottom, physical body dies. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's really no arguing that.
Yeah, totally.
And okay, physical me, hard line in the sand, done. But this non-physical me continues. And I think I am a continuation of the non-physical me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? My parents' values, their experiences. This goes all the way back to cave person.
Yeah, yeah.
So this idea that me, as separate from the progression of a species over time, I'm just a little stone in the water, but the part that I might contribute, the part that happens to me after I die, hopefully is these ideas. And as I did prepare for this just a little bit, it was like, well, there might be a diminishment over time. A wonderful poet or a wonderful artist, with time, maybe we forget about them over time. But that also influenced all kinds of other things that continue to propagate. So who knows, right? The very specific attribution to me and my ideas, they might eventually fizzle. But I have a feeling that we are all part of this continuum fabric that just continues to expand. And so I don't think you can separate what happens to me from what happens to all of it.
Yeah.
It just depends how close we want to zoom in or out.
That's cool. Do you remember, like, many years ago, they used to have, like, the 10,000 shopper thing, and they'd, like, drop balloons from the ceiling, like at a grocery store or something. They'd be like, congratulations.
Right.
I wish I had that button for this moment, because you just gave an actual original answer I've never heard before. And I've had 250 interviews. So that was,
good.
For me, that was very, and it's not that other people give stale answers. It's more that I've never heard it described that way. And what I instantly related to is, like, I'll see a lot of children, like, 17 to 25-year-olds. I call them children now.
45.
Yeah. And they wear Nirvana t-shirts, and I can't tell if it's ironic, because Nirvana is like why I got a guitar. Like, they changed my life. I was at the exact impressionable age when that band became famous. And then later in life, I learned that Nirvana cited the Beatles, and then the Beatles cite Chuck Berry or whatever, and like, it's just, so it's exactly what you're saying, that like maybe the Beatles won't be as famous as Nirvana in 20 years, but like, who cares? Because
but 4-beat rock and roll, and that's
yeah,
right. that connected with somehow these things resonated, and those resonances propagate. Again, someone asked, and this is a great statement someone said to me, and I thought it was a brilliant. He said, I don't know, we were talking about evolution or God knows what, but he said, what is because it worked.
Wow.
Right?
That's
what
cool.
isn't because it didn't work. And so there's probably been 3 trillion groups or bands that never made it.
Yeah.
But something about that configuration, right? That time worked.
Yeah.
And what works propagates. And that's why we're here. We continue to work better than we did before, or we would have been ousted by cats or dinosaurs or something else.
Yeah. There's a great quote, someone, I don't know who it's attributed to, but success is talent plus persistence plus luck. And I just love that third part, that like, no matter what it is you're pursuing, and it's not just for bands or anything else, but just in life, you're the made it moment. It doesn't just come. It's a lot of it is what you're describing. And I always like that. I have a note, and I don't want to not ask it because it's important. Because you're so original and you say things so differently. And I actively listen to how my guests present their ideas. You said something that I really like the way you phrased it. You said we carry ideas. And then I started thinking, can we uncarry ideas? Like how, what is the basket in which we put, because I recently wrote, and I had a lot of feedback on it, that we're not responsible for our thoughts, but we are responsible for our behavior and our interaction with the thoughts. And some people disagree. They think our thoughts, that I have like one friend, he thinks if you have a nasty thought to kill someone, that's actually like really negative. Like you're sinning in like the moment of that thought. I could not disagree more, but it doesn't matter. So I'm curious though, not about sin and all that, but can we uncarry ideas?
Well, here we go back to language. When we say we, who's we? And that's also, it kind of hits me, this idea of emergence, which is, I think, also going on, which is also crazy. So emergence is a phenomenon. And it's best demonstrated. I love ants. For some reason, when I was a kid, I'd watch them all day long. Like, how do they know? Right? You watch them. Who's in charge? And maybe that's the answer to you too. As a kid, is just asking questions like, right? Where someone think, oh, that's an ant. We know what that is. Ants, apparently, I'm not an expert on this, but they have like 4 roles in a colony, whether it's a soldier, whether it's a worker, right? 4 roles interact in ways that creates this colony-wide intelligence that is emergent. It is not within any one of those, and it occurs through all the interactions that result of that. We'll take it back to our DNA. We have whatever they are called, nucleotides or whatever. There's only 4 of them.
I love
and
it.
Look at this thing.
Yeah.
So when I look at we, and when I think of ideas, well, now you have whatever it is, 8 billion ants, right? With how many of those little things? So I have a feeling the we may not just be the collection of the individual we's, that there is also an emergent we. And that becomes more difficult to answer the question. But the answer would be, if it's a meme versus like an element on this planet, or a certain species. I'm not a biologist, but I suppose certain kinds of, well, even if you look at rocks on the planet or anything else, so certain things probably do get weeded out, or overwhelmed by something else. How about this? Remember the sun used to revolve around the Earth?
Yeah.
We still say the sun is setting. Sun is rising.
Yeah.
So it lasts as long as we continue to propagate the language that then reinforces the thing that's baloney.
Yeah.
And so the better our language probably follows our true understanding of how things work. And so, yes, as we come to understand how things truly work, and we eradicate silly ideas of how they don't, then yes, probably they will. Who knows otherwise? If there's just, blue shirts are better than red, Who knows how culture and all those interactions will determine that's a good or bad thing. But yes, I think they do. Who knows who we are that would know at that point
Yeah.
if it's a valid comment or not. And what if all the information you do is your business? Imagine there are people trying to rewrite history.
Yeah.
How many times over history have humans tried to expunge and been effective at it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so you picked such a good example of the sunset sunrise because my daughter is obsessed with that and she's 4, and I'm trying to simultaneously not use those terms, teach her why, and teach her like universe physics and gravity, and also simultaneously let her have fun and be a girl, like like be a little
Be a
kid.
human terrestrial
Yeah.
experiencing Earth from this experience.
Yeah. So it was really apropos, and I'm curious. The this wasn't when I originally asked the can we uncarry ideas, but when you started talking about how to even answer that question, I think the main like thought that always bums me out, like the story of my life is hearing people I respect say, "Well, war is just something we have to do. Like there's no way around this." And I feel like that's the craw in my like that's the thing that's really upsetting me lately is I feel like there's this imperative across humanity that says like, well, this is just an inexhaustible timeless feature of humanity, like the ants have to fight each other. So I guess that's kind of where I'm now wondering about this idea. So I'm just curious in your you seem like a realist, you don't seem like an optimist, you don't seem like a pessimist, you smile a lot for a realist, but so I'm just curious, do you think war is a characteristic of humanity?
So a couple things just happened there.
Mm-hmm.
But just I want to bring up,
Sure.
I'm a working this myself, and as I said, I'm suffering my own mind. Humans think in binary terms, right? War, peace. So I'll ask you, right? What's war? And we get in the whole conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and whether it's good or bad, right? So until we recognize that there is no such thing as binary, it's very convenient. We learned it. That thing is going to kill me, foe, or it's a friend. We had to get very good at that humanistically. So that's where that comes from. Great. Well, since then, we've developed a little thing on the front end here, executive function, and we don't seem to use it. And I don't either. We talk about men, women. Well, at least talk about the masculine energy and feminine energy, which kind of might tend to be in those boxes, but we get so rigid in this, especially Western thinking. Everything's on a spectrum. And so as soon as we call war a box, game over. Now, if conflict is really the core issue with war, yeah, conflict back to it worked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know why animals do this in the way we think that's so just, it's so awful. They're so terrible to each other. If you go back to a species level and then a planetary system level, we're competing for resources, and competing for resources for some reason seem to be associated with a not evolution, but progression of capabilities. For some reason, we were an amoeba and now we're this. So reason that worked.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess war, conflict is a natural progression of testing ideas, right? Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And we're almost that, right?
Yeah.
So we sit here, the thesis, antithesis, war, good, bad. We lose the picture. There's something that happens out of the learnings as long as we don't fail to learn, which we continually do. Yes, war, conflict is part of the progression that's been going on for trillions or billions of years.
That was a great answer. That spoke to my heart and my mind, and I could definitely make a lot of sense of that. And it helps me see something about even my approach to dealing with it just inside my head, between my 2 ears, let alone when I talk to others. Kind of changing subjects, but it's related to a lot of what you said in your answer, and it's especially related to conflict. I want to ask you a little bit about coaching and what that's like, but within that context, how do you deal with conflict with a client? And have you ever, I ask everyone this, have you ever had to fire or dismiss a client?
Interesting. So the last answer, no.
Mm-hmm.
Different clients I'm less excited about others.
Mm-hmm.
What I love is a client who's willing to stop and think what they think, right? But you said the magic word, which is context. And I've said this before. This is not original. This is Zig Ziglar. Back in the day, I was cleaning my dad's car, and there was a tape in the dash, and I pushed it in there, and this guy, Zig Ziglar, and of course, an old character, but he said this, and forgive, it's probably not anyway, it's not totally appropriate nowadays, but he said, you can tell a woman she looks like the first day of spring. He says, you can also tell her she looks like the last day of a long, hard winter. You see, it's the same day. It's all how you look at it, which is true. And so the challenge is when we think that the thing that we're talking about is the problem, is not the problem. It's the context in which you are viewing the problem. So when I come up against, and it's anything we're discussing, I constantly go back to, well, what are your assumptions? What are your, right? And it's so we work on their point of view and their perspective. I'm not trying to change it. I'm challenging them to challenge their own thinking. And then it's like, yeah, it doesn't have to be this way. Or you inspire me with shareholder versus stakeholder thinking, or vice versa. Like, I hadn't looked at it that way. And once we change how we see, everything we see changes. So yeah, I don't get into the conflict thing. As soon as you're in conflict, you've both become, it's almost probably like the quantum observer effect.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
You can tell me that a million times.
Yeah.
I still don't get it.
Yeah.
But it's basically, there's infinite possibility until you choose in the moment or until you observe. And I think that's what happens is we get locked into that state of sudden particle mindset. And now we've lost the whole picture. Once we can look at all the possibilities and say, you know what, there's an awful lot we can agree on here. And if we shift how we think about it, boy, we realize we're exactly the same, stand shoulder to shoulder. And what are we looking at together versus standing in opposition? And now we've lost the war right there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I am a divorced man and I'm remarried and I'm happily remarried, but I'm also approaching marriage the way you just described in the good example, which is like, and one of the things I tried in both marriages that I've never, ever been able to do for even half a day is I'll wake up and I'll be like, well, let's test and see if the problem is me. So why don't you just not say anything conflicting today? And why don't you say yes to everything? And I never make it. Like, there's just like some point where I'm like, my dignity is at
Ego.
stake. Yeah. And so it's fascinating because I do actually see that that's the way to not collapse the quantum paradigm, that like, that is the only way.
Exactly correct. And I always use this expression when you point at someone else, there's three fingers pointing back at you.
Yeah.
So the empower thing is not say you're a jerk and you do that. That's, like, that's my take. So what part did I have in that? And it just, at least it's empowering. Did I cause them to do that? Or what didn't I say that had them do that? At least there's somewhere that you can have some power, but we tend to be over there that's the problem. And, it still doesn't always solve it. She wants seafood tonight and you want a steak. Okay, well, at some point, choose.
I forgot to ask you, where are you located right now?
Los Angeles.
Okay, Los Angeles. I might not have time to include this in the interview, but I didn't even get to ask you about Ithaca. I'm just curious, especially as someone who's living in one of the most beautiful spots on earth. I mean, literally, like I'm from Bay Area, and even I can admit, much to the chagrin of most Bay Area residents, it's more beautiful down there. How was Ithaca for you? Have you ever gone back?
So I did go back. I went to Cornell, but for like a reunion, Ithaca has T-shirts because the old Tarzan movies used to be filmed there.
Oh, wow.
So Rochester, of course, Kodak, that was for the film capital. And if you remember The Little Rascals, we're dating ourselves, that was right down one of the streets there. I can't remember the name of the street. But Tarzan used to, they had these gorges.
Oh, yeah.
And my fraternity house was Jane Eyre. No, Jane, I can't even say her name. Oh my God, I'm losing my mind now. Anyway, they say Ithaca is gorgeous.
Yeah,
that's the pun.
Yeah.
And so, back to physical versus non-physical, it's beautiful in the summer.
Yeah.
And there's just these interesting, I think the Moosewood Cafe.
Yeah, nice.
Right? There's a bunch of things there that is Ithaca beyond the city. And if you think how many people have transited through there and have been influenced by there, Ithaca's alive and well and doing great, winter or summer. So I think it's just there's beauty everywhere. Sometimes you got to go find it. It's in the aesthetics it can be, and I love the West Coast because the mindset is open. Someone said to me, "When are you going to be done getting out of that craziness?" And I'm like, "Yes, there's craziness. There's craziness everywhere, and there's incredible openness, creativity, right? And you don't get that everywhere."
Yeah. And that's funny too. We can't talk about Ithaca all day because I'll annoy like a million people listening. But it is funny that the two types of hippie cultures are literally like the California and the Ithaca. Like it's like very distinctly different to like the East Coast Woodstock model of like, and then the West Coast. But it's cool to meet someone else who's lived in both. And I also actually weathered 2 winters in Ithaca, meaning I didn't leave for any of it. And I can honestly say, having lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and other cold areas, Ithaca between January 1st and January 20th is just like unlike anything. I'm sure our mutual friend Jesse, who's living in northern Canada, knows a hell even worse than that, but it is something else. Ted, I am running out of time. I always give my guests the floor at the end of the interview just to kind of give your last word to my audience, whatever you want. There will be plenty of notes for how to find you, but what would you like to say to our audience? Anything you want.
Well, I appreciate just where you're coming from in this, and honestly, when I thought about what are your thoughts about mortality, or what happens after life, it strikes me that if we could all just recontextualize what life is, it's well beyond the carbon construct that we are. It's every moment, it's our experiences, it's all of our senses, it's our wishes, our dreams. And it's not only having experienced those while we're living, which I'm busy. Look, I work all day long, and I think, wow, what if I'm died tomorrow? Well, I'd be glad that I did that note. Okay, there's back to time frames, but in the bigger time frame, just to have experienced, to have loved. It sounds corny, but it really is. To have been influenced by, impacted by, and impacting others. That's the part that you want to live on. So be who you are. And if you don't know who that is, it's taken 59 years for me to finally step into, find out, because it ain't going to be, you're not going to be able to enjoy it afterwards. And they're not going to be able to enjoy it now unless you do the work. So let's just all help each other just really be all that we are, because we are like that smile. We're not allowing ourselves to be, for whatever reason. So smile who you are. And there's my little soliloquy.
I loved it. Thank you, Ted. You're awesome. I really appreciate this interview. I like the depth to which you go. And I especially like how you pause and talk about thinking about the question. And that's like a good model for everyone, myself included. And gosh, if only we could get people at the electoral level to do that in real time and in front of us. What a mind-blowingly different world this would be. So thank you, Ted, for inspiring me, and I loved your last words. And thank you to everyone at home for listening or watching Coffin Talk. Once again, we have been interviewing Ted Whetstone, and my name is Mike Oppenheim. This is Coffin Talk, and we will see you soon.